Hi, everyone.
What's
How's it
up?
going? Happy almost Friday. Thank you all so much for being here. Please say hello in the chat. Say hello to each other, name, drop where you're from, your LinkedIn. Use this as an opportunity to network. I get started in a little bit. But yeah, the usual for those who are joining us again for another alumni chat, welcome. I am Emily, the community manager for Designlab, and I have Robbin with me today. Robbin and I feel like we've been on this journey together the last 4 or 5 years, and our stories are very similar. I'm not here to talk about me because that's already been recorded a few years ago. Today we're going to focus on Robbin. So yeah, say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're from, and then if you have questions throughout it's not really a presentation. This is really just a chat, like a fireside chat with Robbin, a chance to pick her brain. If you have questions based off of what she's saying, please drop them in the questions tab and please upvote questions. Like if there are things that you are asking, go through the questions list, see if it's already been asked and upvote the one that probably matches your question. If not, feel free to, throw in another question, no big deal. That's how we're going to be kind of going with the flow today. So the first about half of the chat today is going to be us, like me, moderating with some questions that I already have. But as we start to get questions in the questions tab, we're going to go through lightning round of questions. So it'll 100% be based off of upvotes. And then once we kind of run out of those questions, if we run out of those questions, then we'll go into the questions that come in, the order that they were received. So, hello. Oh, Oceanside. You're like in my backyard. That's awesome. I'm in San Diego. That's so cool. Hi, everyone. All right. Looks like we have a lot more folks from San Diego. This is very, very odd for me because it's just I very rarely see designers from San Diego. So it's like it's so exciting for me. Oh my gosh.
I really hope my internet kind of stays connected, so hopefully it won't be all messed up.
We understand, right? Like it's the world of living behind a screen. We do everything virtually now. I don't think Zoom or any other of these platforms are really ready to handle all of this all of the usage that's been happening in the last year. So, all right, cool. Yeah, Sarah, you're so close. Just come on over. No big deal. We're like a neighboring state. All right, cool. So we're going to get started. So like I said, I am Emily. I am the Designlab community manager, also a UXA alum and a group crit facilitator along with Robbin. And like I mentioned, please say hello in the chat. Tell us where you're from. Share your LinkedIn if you want to network with others. Drop your questions in the questions tab, and we will get to it towards the end of our chat. So I'm going to hand it over to Robbin to let her introduce herself. Maybe we'll start off with, who you are, what do you currently do, and then we'll dive into your journey.
Cool. Hey, folks. I know some of you, I probably don't know most of you because there's like over 150 people here. That's like more than the original number of Pokemon, which is like, oh my God, that's a lot of people. I'm Robbin, and I am currently a design curriculum producer at Designlab. Previously, I was a UX Academy student because it's an alum thing. And yeah, now I'm here with Emily to basically have the Emily and Robbin show, and that's where we are.
I did drop a question of the webinar in the chat. It's which Pokemon are you? So if that has ever been your hype, you'll know exactly which Pokemon you are. So looking forward to those answers. All right, cool. So Robbin, so we are alum and we've had journeys before UXA. Tell us about your journey. Where did you start? Were you a career transitioner? All that fun stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm like a double, triple career transition person. So I went to, like, starting a long time ago, I went to UC Davis to do like Japanese and psychology studies. After that, it was like, what is even college for? I don't understand. So I worked at a bookshop for about 3 years, worked at a print shop, and then I went to pharmacy, and pharmacy made me cry. So I was like, I should probably not do pharmacy. And then around that time was when I learned about UX design, because I was like, I really need to get out of pharmacy. It's like, actually, I've never done anything that made me so sad in my life. I mean, seriously, it's awful. Like, how can you just like turn people away because they don't have insurance? Anyways, that's thing for another side. But in any case, the person I was dating at the time was like, have you ever considered design? And I'm like, design? I don't want to be a starving artist. And they're like, that's not the only thing that design is. So that was kind of a surprise. But that's when I learned about UX design after like applying to my first tech job, which was at Udemy, which was, I think, the first real career switch. I cannot tell you how weird it is to go from retail life into like startup life. It is so weird. Like they laughed at me when I asked where my time card was, and they were like, time card? What's that? So yeah, I learned about it from Udemy. I started off as customer support there, and I did community management and just hopped around, had great managers, and then did UX Academy, got into product design.
All right, so we're gonna split that up into, I think, 2 follow-up questions, because I think one of them touches on something that we talk about a lot. But the first one that I would like to ask, which I'm sure many are kind of curious about, is why Designlab? Like, why Designlab over other boot camps? What about it was appealing to you?
So gosh, it's been a while since I've been doing this, but I did like my research, like any person who's very concerned about money does. Did a lot of research, tried to see like, okay, what does Designlab offer that like things like Springboard or General Assembly, et cetera, offer. And at the time I was looking at General Assembly, but it was like, I don't have that much money and I don't really think that this live classroom thing makes sense for me. But I will be honest, I was talking with some of my design friends and I was like, if you had to choose one of these, what would you choose? And one of my design friends actually said that she was applying to be a mentor at Designlab. So I decided to take a look at it. I'm like, I trust you. You're one of my favorite people. So I'll look into this Designlab thing. So actually Designlab a long time ago, but when it was like, it was a baby by that point, not super great. So I was like, oh, it's so bad. I'm going to go and like get a refund. But this is like way in the beginning when we just literally started as Designlab. And it was not UX Academy yet. It was just like UX 101 when they had those classes, and they don't have it now, so don't look it up. But I decided to look at it again after like more and more of my designer friends started saying that they were becoming mentors at Designlab. And it's like, okay, I trust like all of you. So, I mean, stuff must have changed. And so it did. And at the end of the day, it was the price point that I could afford, 1. 2, like, working at Udemy, which is, by the way, for those who don't know, it's online education. I'm like, I'm just going to go the online route all the way because I just don't have time to go out and go into the classroom again. I'm too sleepy to do that. And I think the third thing too is just that whole like, well, what am I going to lose? If I don't get a job within X amount of months, then I can request a refund. What can I lose? Those are the main reasons there.
So I guess before I jump into that second part of the question, the second question that I wanted to get to, just in general, because you and I are both career switchers, our own experiences in terms of how things translate, like, what's your advice for people who are looking to do the career switch and maybe don't have any like previous design experience? Like, what's your advice to them if they are considering a career in UX design or product design?
Let me see. I think the first thing is, if you have no idea how to define it, figure out how to define it first. Like, it is so hard to find information if you don't even know how to explain what UX design is. And to give yourself kind of a baseline, like, can you explain it to your parents or your grandparents, and will they understand it? You need to get to a point where you understand what UX design is, where they will understand it. And then you can kind of start going like, okay, now I kind of know what it is, like, great. So 1, make sure you know what you're getting into. What is it actually? The second thing is, do not go into it thinking that you're going to be like a graphic designer or web designer, because it is not the same. Let's see, what else? Once you've decided, yeah, this UX design thing is really cool, but I have like no experience at all with doing anything designy, Figma's free. So get Figma. It's browser based. If you have the internet, you have Figma. And do like some daily UI challenges, or just copy some websites. Just see like how you feel about it and how long it takes you. And the more comfortable you feel with that, the more it's like, okay, I get this visual part now. Great. Like, I think that's one of the steps. But the second step also is just knowing like what even is startups and what even is business and the world like this, because that was the other thing I had no idea about.
So you mentioned defining UX. I guess if you can kind of at the beginning of your journey, how did you define then, and has the definition changed as you've grown as a designer?
Yeah. When I first started with UX design, pretty much everything was, I don't understand what UX design is. Is it wireframes? Is it like just making the website and then sharing it with an engineer and they make it? Is it am I just like talking at a meeting? I'm not actually sure what it is. Literally every time I would ask a design person like, yo, UX design friend, what exactly do you do? And they would answer me with, well, we solve problems. And I'm like, what does that even mean? So that was pretty much my very ambiguous, there was no definition for me for UX design in the first place. I did not even actually know that there were other types of design within the UX field. Like, I didn't know there was UI design. I didn't know what product design was. And so like I was at Udemy and I saw that our design folks there were product designers. And so I was like, is that the same as UX? So that was step one for me. I had to figure out what that difference was. And I did not really learn the difference until I actually became a product designer and asked people whose title was literally UX designer and found out that sometimes there's no difference. And the thing that you really have to look at are the job postings. You have to look at the responsibilities because that's really where it is. And when y'all accept that things like UX, UI designer, product designer, whatever, are just buzzwords, you're probably in a good place to continue going on and saying, all right, I'm just going to define this for myself and figure out of these job responsibilities, what do I actually like doing here? So, yeah.
Oh, then I guess today, let's say you were talking to someone who maybe has an idea of what UX is, but probably doesn't. How do you define it to them in a way that they'll understand it?
User experience design is solving problems. It is a way to solve problems, but I think the way that I would also add to that is if you're going into a business as a UX designer, the goal of you being there is to make sure that whatever product goes out to the world is going to be not just delightful, but easy to use for them. Like if you think about video games, so much of video games is it's UX design. If you have a video game that has like a really terrible menu item and you can't actually get to the menu, that's poor UX design. So what am I even saying here? Sorry, I lost my trail of thought. Anyways, design, just remember it's design, but as a job. If you're doing UX design, if you're doing product design, you have a job here and your job is to make sure that the business stays afloat, but also that your users are happy.
My analogy for this one, when I try to define it to someone, is actually use Disneyland as an example. For anyone who's been to a theme park, just in general, like even a retail store, everything is placed and mapped very intentionally. Like Disney, number one, like even if you try to park, in their parking lot, park in any space that you want to park in. You have to park in the space that they want you to park in. Why? It's because it's for efficiency and also utilization of the space. So when you think about it in that terms, right, you think about the experience that Disney has created at a theme park, like that's really what we do, but in a different capacity on a digital screen. So that's kind of how I've always defined it, to kind of like put it in a picture that's a little bit more relatable for people. So yeah.
UX design is like, if you like flowcharts, you're probably going to be good at UX design. If you like psychology and flowcharts, you're probably going to be good at design.
And if you also loved asking why, you'll be
that too.
good at UX design.
Ask why until the answer is like, because we'll all die at the end of the day. That's really what.
All right, we're gonna jump into, I guess, your journey at UXA. So, or like while you were in UX Academy. All right, so we talked about, how you decided on Designlab, but I guess diving into it, like, did you have like a favorite part or a high point while you were in UX Academy? And then conversely, like, what was your biggest struggle?
My high point, this is going to be just like super biased for anybody who's been in my group crits. Like my high point was always group crits. because that was the actual time I got to ask people like 50 million questions about like, but why'd you put it there? I don't understand. Am I actually doing this right? So I really enjoyed being able to talk to more than just my mentor, who was also fantastic. My mentor was like a really great cheerleader. But going to group crits was actually the thing that I looked forward to the most. Because I had kind of like a mini squad. Like we always were there at the same time on Wednesdays at 10 in the morning. And it was Matt who was our like group critique leader. And like that was the ones I would go to. I might have gone to one of yours once, possibly a long time ago. And I can't remember who actually recommended me into the group critique facilitation like land life. But it happened at some point. I can't remember. So yeah, I would say like that's the high point for me. Just like the designing, like the visual designing part is fun and all that. But what I actually really liked was taking all of that and trying to explain it.
For sure. And she's not at all trying to sell group crits to everyone. Like, not at all.
No, not at all.
Well, no, we've both been facilitators for probably the same amount of time. So we've both been doing this for a while. And Robbin is like, I always like say, like, she's like my OG facilitator, like with me. And we recently recruited someone on our team who was in the program around the same time, I believe. With Dan Andrews?
Dan
Andrews was also, I believe, in Robbin's cohort. So yeah, there's a lot of OG folks as facilitators. So all of our facilitators are alumni too. So we did do a chat with a few of them last year. So, you know, you can always go to our YouTube channel and go check that out. All right. So biggest struggle while you were in UX Academy?
The struggles. I think choosing capstones was really hard. So back when I was in UX Academy, we only did 2 capstones and not 3. So the 2 that I had was I did the bike shop one and I did one on books. So the bike shop one was terrifying because I don't know anything about bikes. And I was like, well, I'm in San Francisco, so I should probably find people who like bicycling and stuff. That's fine. It was terrifying. I actually went to bike shops for the first time ever. And it was just me going like, hi, I don't know anything about bikes. Can you tell me about bikes? That was horrifying. It was terrifying. It got better after I decided I wanted to go with like the Goodreads type thing, because I kind of wish that I asked my mentor this earlier, but she said, look, you probably should have started with a books one, and here's why. Do you like books? If you go into a bookstore and like somebody went up to you saying like, yo, can I ask you about books? Would you be like, no, I hate books? You'd be like, no, I love books. Why would I even do that? So I could. It was just much easier when I figured out that if I'm just talking to people as if they're like normally people and I just wanted to talk to them about stuff that I also like too, it was fine. But that bike shop thing was terrifying. I didn't know anything about bikes, so I felt super dumb. I didn't even know what kind of questions I had to ask. It was like also super dumb. So eventually I'm like, I just need to have a wingman with me just to like actually come with me and talk with that person at the bike shop. So that was terrifying. If y'all are, nobody actually believes this, I'm really, really introverted, and I was really quiet, really like, I will not talk normally. So this was extra hard for me, just being super afraid of talking to people.
All right, so I think we can dive into this because now you have a few years of wisdom on you. So with that bike shop project, right? I did that project too, and it kind of felt the same way. You know, it's an area that I'm unfamiliar with. I don't know what to ask. I don't know where to start. I feel like that is definitely where a lot of folks, I feel like that's how a lot of folks feel today. Like with, you know, I know the dream for us, right, is to like, we want to work in a place that has a product or a service that we really, really love. You know, we want to be able to feel good about it and advocate for it. Like that is the dream. But we always know that sometimes dreams can take a few steps before you can actually attain your dream. So what would your advice be for folks who are kind of in that ground of like, you know, they're starting their UX career, they would really love to just, you know, be in a place where they can work on something that truly matters to them, but maybe it's just not possible then? Like, what's your advice for them and how to navigate that?
Okay, hang on. So the question is like, people have dreams. I got that part. People have dreams, they got that part, but how do you get there, especially when you're like not a designer yet? Is that essentially?
Or like when you're just starting like your career, right? Because like, you know, even us, we had like, oh, we would love to work for XYZ company. Like we love like this app, and that's the dream, right? We want to be able to like work for a place where we're like truly proud of like whatever they put out, right? But like we also know that sometimes it takes a little bit to like actually achieve those dreams. So in between, you got to go through certain motions to, you know, get to that dream. And that could mean working for a company that maybe doesn't jazz you so, you know, like jazz you up so much, or like you're kind of like about it, like, but it's the experience. So that's always like the question. It's like, do I take the job that is a job, it's a UX job in a company that's like, yeah, okay, that's experience, but then, or do I hold off for that dream job as my first one? Oh, yeah.
That one's tough. Because I was in jobs that I didn't really like. There were jobs that I really enjoyed. I love my job now. So let's see. When you are just starting out and you literally have like nothing, like I didn't have a design background. So it's really important, I think, to figure out at what point are you willing to just keep going for it. You have to give yourself a limit. And I think I gave myself a limit of, if I feel like I'm going to have a mental breakdown every other day, I'm probably in a bad place. So that's going to be my like threshold. Let's not do that. But if it's something where it's just like, well, I'm kind of bored, but at least like there's somebody here that I can ask. If there's somebody who I can like get a mentor, et cetera, then it's not so bad. Like even when I was at a place when I did not like working there, I still reached out to people who are friends, people who are mentors, and that actually kept me afloat for so much of it. So if you can like find mentors that you trust, I think that's actually going to help people get through whatever those rough patches are of UX in general. I know a lot of people who started off in UX who were just like, well, this first year of my life in like UX design was terrible, but I mean, it's fine. Because eventually, like, you just keep going and you'll find something that you like. And I will just say this as well, like, there's only so much that you have to make sure you figure out, what can I do personally, and what is the rest of the world going to be doing, where it's going to be like, I can't actually control this. Just accept that you can't control some of these things. Like, if I wanted to work at Goodreads and they don't have any positions open, I can't bang on Goodreads' door and be like, yo, I want a job. I want to be UX designer. Can you just like open one now? It doesn't work that way. Not like I've tried or anything.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I guess we're going to switch over to Q&A now, because some of the questions coming in are quite related and they kind of stem from our conversation. Also, it seems like the chat has evolved into what Pokemon are you to what donut are you? I don't know if that is just a response to Amber, but you know, Robin, what kind of donut are you?
I want to be a mochi donut.
A mochi donut. Okay. Okay. I
An
can buy that.
mochi donut.
Yep. I can see that. All right. Cool. So we're going to dive into the questions. Again, I believe there is a way to upvote questions. So we're going to go by way of upvotes, and we're going to work down the list. So the first one is from Asha. Hi, Robin. Nice to meet you. What are some tips on getting your first UX design job after completing the bootcamp, especially if you have no work or internship experience? Is there anything that we can do to make ourselves stand out?
All right. That is definitely an FAQ right there. So gosh, this is absolutely the hardest part. So when I finished UX Academy, like mine was a little bit different, because I was trying to become a product designer at Udemy, where I was already still working. And by that point, I've been working at Udemy for like 4 years. So literally everybody knew me. Theoretically, it should not have been difficult for me to get into product design. But again, trying to figure out what you can control and what you can't control. And I cannot control bureaucracy. Like, I found out the hard way that you can't just take somebody from support and then like drop them into the design team, because that's not how budgeting works. And when you have like budgets at a company, so that was a surprise. But in any case, like that's a bit different. So I wasn't doing the same thing that other people did after UX Academy. However, I was still trying to apply, because you should always be applying anyways. Try to do something. I worked with some nonprofits. You could go onto things like Taproot. If you look up local organizations online and just be like volunteer opportunities and put in like web design, which I know is not UX design, but I mean, it's a start. The point is you want to work with somebody. Some of the best advice I got from one of my coworkers a long time ago was like, look, when you are hiring somebody who is coming from a boot camp, what is something that you look for? And the way that she replied wasn't like, oh, I can't tell you what I look for because sometimes it varies so much. But the one thing that I do look for that is bad, that is a red flag, is if I cannot tell that they've worked with other people. So in terms of like standing out, make sure that you are working with other people. Either work with other designers. If y'all are coming to group crits, you're working with other designers. I hope you all know that. Like you can put that in your case study. It's not illegal. You are like learning like from each other. It's fine. Are you working with other people? If you've worked with like developers, that's especially like helpful. So if you can, you probably know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's gone to a development boot camp. Probably ask them if you can intro them. Just see if you can work on something together. Even just have them like look at your design and ask them questions like, oh, how long do you think this will take? Or like, would you hate me if I sent this to you and I said I need this tomorrow, or something like that. So you're just making those like connections. And I'm not even like, I don't want to say the word networking because networking is a disgusting word that nobody likes. But at the end of the day, like you're not networking, you're just like trying to talk to other people and go like, yo, I'm just trying to learn more about your life and stuff. But yeah, development, learn about product management, talk to PMs for sure. Just like, how long would this take? Even just understanding that sort of thing and having that kind of feedback, super, super helpful. And if this isn't clear, like this is essentially making you stand out by putting it in your case studies and putting it in your portfolio. Just make sure your portfolio, whatever your work is there, it's not like your portfolio shouldn't be, here's all of the work I've ever done in my entire life. It should be, here's my best work. Here's the work that I really do not mind talking about. And in fact, I can talk to you about it for 10 hours if you wanted me to. So it has to be work that you are comfortable with talking about. And yeah, I think those are the main things. Talk to other people, find people to work with. You could do volunteer stuff. You could talk to friends of friends of friends, because somebody's probably starting a business somewhere. Somebody only has a Facebook page, and you're like, you know what you could have is more than a Facebook page, and I can help you there. You can be that person, you know, like, and it's fine if you even just build it on Squarespace. It's all good.
Okay, so related to the comment of, or I guess like, you know, if you want me to talk to you about this for 10 hours, like I will do so. Something that I always like tell people also, like in the role of soft skills, which is what Group Crits is for, it's to build your soft skills. I have also been hired based off of my pure passion and determination for just wanting the job, being able to speak to my process. Would you agree that just your passion alone can help like literally land you a position?
Passion alone will get you not nowhere, but they'll be like, whoa, this person is really excited about stuff. You need to have passion, but with something that can back it up. Like I can say like, I'm super passionate about NASA, but I'm not going to be an astronaut in the next like 5 years or whatever, because I don't want to put in the work to be an astronaut. So, hey, let me see. Passion is fine, but you need to make sure you can like connect everything that you've done in your past to whatever your passion is, so that your passion isn't just like, I love this thing so much. But it's, I love this thing so much, and here's why I am also a great person to help you with this because I'm passionate about it.
Yep, totally. And I think it was, sorry, like if I wasn't clear enough. It was more like passion about like speaking to your work, you know, like it comes off like when you, like, I think that's always a common question that we get, you know, from students, you know, working on capstones, working on projects is, you know, how do I sell this? Right. Like, and that's usually like, well, you can speak to your process. You're able to actually defend your decisions. I saw that came through the chat at some point, like, and you're able to speak to it passionately and really well. Like it comes through. It really does show in your interviews, at least from what I found.
Yeah, for sure. If you like what you worked on, if you can like really, oh, here's a good one. If you can really talk through an issue that you had while you were doing this case study, and you can talk to it like really nicely and not mean, just like, wow, you really handled that really difficult situation so well. That stands out a lot, I would say.
And always remember, nothing is a negative thing. Everything negative is reframed as an opportunity. It's reframed as an
Yes,
opportunity to learn.
always reframe it as an opportunity. Nothing is ever bad. It's just like we had to look at it in another way.
Yep. All right. So I guess this actually dives into, I hope I'm saying the name right, Chow's question. I'm a serial career switcher too. I was wondering, how have you explained your various backgrounds in interviews? I always feel like it looks like I can't grow in a single area, even though that's not the case. And you and I know this very well.
Oh yeah, we know it super well. So I think kind of going back to it, like honestly, the other thing that one of my senior mentors was telling me was like, you got to just reframe like literally everything. Like that's probably maybe 80% of the basis of design, trying to get people to understand something that you are explaining. So like for me, I had pharmacy, I had customer support, I had community management. And the thing that I knew there was that all three of these things absolutely had to do with working with people. At the end of the day, y'all are designing for people. Honestly, I feel like whenever I hear that somebody has a background where they're like an actor or something, I'm like, dude, you're in such a good position to be a designer because you already understand what it's like to just study somebody and study and try to see what it's like to be in their shoes. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had any of those, what's the word I'm thinking about, sessions with somebody looking at your resume and they're like, you need to like jazz up your resume. And instead of just saying like, I cleaned floors, you have to do it like, I maintained the integrity of the store or something like that. But, just do it like in a design focused kind of way. And by that, I mean a user kind of way, a person kind of way, because chances are you've probably spoken to a person, you've probably worked with somebody at some point in your life. So you just have to kind of keep that in mind. So that's one part, like know that you could use any of your soft skill people thingies as something to talk about and translate into like design life. The second thing too is wherever you are coming from, just assume that that is going to be your subject matter expert life. And by that, it's like, if I were somebody who was good at finances, I'm not. Please never ask me about anything that has to do with money. But like, assuming I was, and I was like an accountant in my past life or something, I am now a subject matter expert in finance or financial stuff. So like, I might not have the design background in it yet, but I have all this other stuff that you do not have to teach me. So like, that is stuff that you need to figure out. Like, even though I hated pharmacy, I can still say like, no, dude, I worked at a pharmacy. I know what that's like. Or I'm not an author, but I've worked at a bookstore. You can always relate something. Like if you, I don't know, that could be just another question. Put some skill that you have out there and just be like, oh yeah, well, how can I turn this into some kind of cool skill? I'm sure we could find a way.
And if you come from support like me and Robbin did, your soft skills are your biggest asset going into UX design. As a support agent, you're very good at creating personas in your head based off of all the interactions that you have. And people will probably think that you're crazy or that you're generalizing until 3 months later, they're going to realize that you were correct.
We're almost always right, by the way. If y'all are in customer support, you are seeing all of those patterns for like bad things happening first. So yeah, that's really important. You see patterns. That's important. You can start figuring out what kind of things to look for and why somebody would reply a certain way. And then it just becomes much easier. Same thing with design.
Yep, totally. All right, so this goes into Natalie's question. Says, when did you feel confident? I guess when in the program did you feel confident that you were going to get a UX job?
I went into the program kind of always thinking like, I'm going to get a UX job one way or another. Even if I don't understand what the stuff is now, I'm going to understand what it is. For those who don't know, I did this full time while working full time. So I think that kind of also added to the pressure of like, look, y'all, I need to get a job after this because I am working so hard and I'm probably going to like collapse after all of this. So I need to figure out how I'm going to do this. The second thing is like, it's kind of like a weird philosophical sort of thing, I guess. But again, having worked at Udemy for 4 years, having known everybody, it makes all the difference in the world to know you have that much support from people who can like they can like vouch for you. They can fight for you. And I think knowing that I had that support made it so much easier for me to be like, I'm going to go through with this and I'm going to be able to do it. So I cannot like just make allies, always make friends. Like, honestly, if you're just not a jerk, you're going to be a great designer. Like I was friends with everyone because everyone is cool. And that's just kind of how that was. Let me see what else. I can't remember what I was saying. But yeah, I think during UX Academy itself, I was still just like, oh my God, I'm a student still. I didn't actually feel really comfortable with being a designer until like my first actual role at Udemy, where I was like, oh my God, we're doing it. We're about to make one of those journey maps. Oh my God, I'm so excited. But it was nothing like what it's like when you're doing, school stuff. Because I think it's very easy to take your UX Academy projects too seriously. Like everything is going to be the end if you do it. Like, it's not like that. It's not life or death. Yeah, so journey maps are like fantastic. But yeah, because I realized when I made this journey map and I made it all beautiful and stuff, it actually only mattered if somebody actually looked at it. And if nobody looked at it, like, then why did I do this? Why did I spend all this time doing this? But that's when you have to stop and tell yourself, like, oh my gosh, this is part of what it means to being a designer. This is not something that actually interacted and like got to the stakeholder that I needed to like have see this. And that moment where it's like, I can actually choose the design tools to make this happen because I know who I'm talking to. We didn't have to make a journey map this whole time. I could have just like done something else. I could have literally just sketched this out on a whiteboard with the person who I needed to look at this, and then they would have been fine, and we could have kept going. I did not have to spend like the 12 hours on this journey map, though it looked beautiful. It was the most beautiful journey map I've ever made in my life.
And this is why we also say, especially in phase 1 of UX Academy, done is better than perfect, because that is really just for everyone in phase 1 to just learn the process from end to end, and phase 2 and beyond is really your chance to define your process, to like figure out what process works for you. And that's not to say that the process is going to apply to every single job scenario, but it's what works for you as a person.
Yeah, you just got to keep going through with it. Also, I'm changing so much of the stuff in the curriculum, so I'm trying to make sure that a lot of the stuff in the curriculum now says things like, don't go for perfect, go for finished. So it'll just be haunting everyone by that point.
All right, so we're going to skip 2 questions because we actually touched on this, and then we'll go back to the other 2. But this one's from Carly. I have a full-time job. Is it possible to complete the bootcamp while working 40 hours a week? And in your instance, yes. But any tips for folks who are considering both full-time?
You need to be really, really, really good at time organization. It helps if you have managed projects before. And don't even think about it as like a business thing. Let me put it this way. If you have ever like put together a party for somebody, that is a project. How long did it take you to make this party happen? I don't know, but you were probably doing other things. So just keep that in mind. Like if you've done that sort of stuff, you probably made time at some point to do these things. I had a very, very detailed Google Calendar where like I actually mapped out how much time I actually had that was free. And you'd be surprised how much free time y'all actually have when you map it out. It's terrifying. Because it's like, even if I spent 8 hours a day on work, there's still, okay, and like maybe 6 to 7 hours of sleep, which I never actually get. I get more like 4 hours of sleep, whatever. Then you start seeing where those pockets of time are, where it's like some days I'm okay with just waking up early and doing an hour of work if I needed to. Most days I know I work much better at night. So I knew I had like an hour to just like relax, watch TV or crochet or whatever else I'm doing at night, an hour or 2. And it'll be like 8 or 9. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to work now. And for me, like, it was just easier for me to work at like from like 9 to 10 and just know where I was budgeting all of my time. So if you cannot budget your time well, do not do the full-time thing. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if your other job is demanding and like you need to be present, I also do not recommend doing it. Like my full-time job was demanding, but like I'd done customer support for so long that I could do it with like blindfolded and like with like one hand, I don't know, whatever else thing you want to put, like doing customer support is no problem for me. So like I knew that. And so I could just turn that part of my brain kind of off and I didn't have to really worry about it so much. So those are some of the things I would keep in mind. I also wrote an article about it somewhere. I'll like share it.
Yeah, Robin and I both have articles. That mine's about how I'm a habitual quitter in life and how the UX Academy is basically the only thing I've ever completed and felt fulfilled with. But that sounds really dark, but I promise it's not. All right, so we're going to jump back to this one, which we also touched on. And I know that part of the answer will be group crits, but I guess thinking outside of group crits, how do you get better at talking to users or stakeholders for someone who's introverted? And I will also echo Robin's sentiment. Like, I know it doesn't seem like I'm also introverted, but I am deathly introverted. This is probably the most social I will get.
Yeah, same. That's essentially it. I would say it is surprising how much you can do if you literally record yourself and listen to yourself. You're going to hate it. Like, it's awful listening to a recording of yourself and seeing what you're actually doing. So just kind of brace yourself for that. You're going to notice all these weird things. Like, I know that I always do this like weird hand stuff whenever I'm presenting, but I just can't stop doing it. And you'll figure out every single time that you say, you'll figure out where you're going to say, just pause for a second or whatever. So record yourself, and like, don't even think about recording yourself talking about design. Record yourself explaining something you like to somebody who doesn't know it. Like, I don't know, I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. If I am going to be talking to somebody who has never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, you know I'm going to talk about that for like 20 bajillion like hours. But I have to admit, I don't have 20 bajillion hours, so I have to condense that in a certain amount of time. And I have to say it in a way that like this other person would understand. Like, what is Avatar: The Last Airbender? I don't understand it. Like, I need to get them to understand it. And so talk about something you like first, and then slowly and gradually start talking about how you are approaching your process of like design. It gets much, much easier that way. And again, helps if you have mentors or friends who are like not designers. Like, I live with like engineers, so I ask engineers questions all the time, and it makes things so much easier for me because I'm like, yo, if I did this, how can I present it to you? What are some things I would need? So I have that advantage of like living with engineers, but you too can just reach out to an engineer who may or may not want to talk to you. But that's why you just need to like ask other people who ask other people who have friends, whatever.
And if the thought of like recording yourself just feels so awkward and because you're talking into nothingness, ask a friend who just has an idea of what you're doing, but maybe doesn't. And that's also a great way to kind of like, kind of feel out the kinks, like feel, get your bug reports and stuff, right? So like, that way you can ask your friend, like, was there anything that I said that wasn't clear, right? Like, there's all these things that you can always get feedback on. So so if talking to like a screen into nothingness doesn't really fulfill that area, then I would say like go talk with a friend for sure.
Yeah, group crits. Always good.
The answer is group crits. Yeah, the answer is
that's the answer to
really
everything.
All right, cool. So from Marley, now that you understand the different roles of UX design, what do you personally enjoy doing most, and which descriptions speak to you the most?
I really hate doing visual design. I found out that I hate it so much. It is so hard doing visual design when you're hue blind. And it's like, I know that I have to check these contrast things, but in addition to checking contrast, I can't even actually tell if these colors look good together because like they seem so close. So I hate doing visuals. I will not do that. I really enjoy doing things that are more related to research. I like things that are closer to like strategy. And I like things where the collaboration internally is really where I like excel the most, because I love meetings. Nobody ever says that, but I love studying meetings and going like, you can't talk now because we're going to run out of time. So just meeting stuff is fun for me. So if I'm there for kickoff meetings, I'm there for like, oh, you need me to like make sure this other person understands what's going on? Yes, I will do that. I will help you with that. I will help you all the way up until wireframes. And then when it's time to just put into visual, I'll be like, what if I didn't do the visual part? So yeah, but that is to say though, you should still be good at the visual part, especially if you're starting out and you have no design background. You have to at least show that it's like, I might not have the background, but I still produce this amazing thing. So if there's anything that you have to think about, like if you hate visual design like me, you push. And like Emily, I think I asked you this a long, long time ago. I'm like, what do I do if I hate visual design? And I was like, your portfolio is so beautiful. And she was like, dude, I hate visual design also. Like I just pushed and just kept going. And that was the one thing that I really like made sure I focused on. So also do that too.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I set as a goal for myself in my capstones so at the time that Robbin and I were in the program, there were only 2 capstones instead of 3. So I really did have to choose. So one of the projects was basically doing what I knew I was strong in. And then the other one was focusing on visual design, because that's not something that I feel like I'm strong in. I can do it. I absolutely can do it. I can understand the relationship between just the general UX to UI and UX to UI and visual design. I understand the relationships there, but like overall, like I think it's okay for everyone to decide like I'm good at this part. But I think what Robbin's also saying, it's like that doesn't mean you exclude knowing what the other parts are. All right, we have about 13 more minutes, so we'll probably get through another 4 or 5 questions, and then we should be able to wrap up. So this one's a hot question, and this one, please take this with a grain of salt, because it really does come down to company culture, what they value, what they care about, all that stuff. But Taylor, we're asking your loaded question in relation to client work in UXA, especially with capstones. Like what, like, so Taylor's example is, what if you didn't work with a real client at all for UXA? I was told from a designer at HBO that they didn't like fictional projects, and now I'm worried. What are your thoughts on that?
Every company is going to be different. And so this is also why it's so important to make sure that you are reaching out to people that you know, that you hope you know, whatever. Like, as silly as LinkedIn can be, if you at least have somebody who's like kind of a second, like this person knows this person, like just kind of start there. Because there's a chance that they might actually know this person. You never know. Maybe they're actually best friends with like the recruiter at HBO or whatever. You'd be surprised at how much that makes a big difference, because they're more willing to be like, well, this person's my friend, so I'll take a look at it. Like when it comes down to it, think about, yeah, there's the company, but you also need to think about the fact that within the company, there are also humans. You are also a human. And if you can make that connection, it makes all the difference. So like, for example, at Udemy, I did not get in with any connections, and I'm still just like, thank my lucky stars. I don't know how this happened. I seriously have no idea what happened. Getting into startups is so hard, and I was just really, I felt super lucky that they chose me. But I think a big part of why I was able to get in was because I had like such good references from before. Like I was still in touch with like my professor, who I was a TA for a long time ago, and my old manager and all that other stuff. And so I think having those personal references, and even if you just know them, what a big difference that makes. Because they'll be like, oh, you're actually just reaching out to me as like a human. You're not approaching me like, hi, I like jobs. Can you give me a job? You're not approaching them like that. So like approach them in just that sort of way of like, hey, like I know that this company is really big. I heard that fictional stuff isn't great, which I understand totally. But if you were in my shoes, like what would you do? How can I potentially like make this work if I wanted to like work over there? Like, because you want to work at a certain place, right? Bigger companies might not accept it. Smaller companies probably won't care as much. There's another article I have somewhere where it's like you can position yourself as somebody, your portfolios. Here's one for like a big company. Here's one for a mid company. Here's one for an agency. At the end of the day, it just comes down to your storytelling, and it comes down to how comfortable you are with learning more about the culture at that company. Like I would say like Udemy, we were very people oriented. And so people, of course, I mean, of course your skills also, but like if you were just clearly demonstrating that you're not just here because, oh, I just want a job, but I'm actually passionate about education, like that makes a really big difference. So I would say there's that. check out those companies, try to see if you know somebody who knows somebody. And if you don't, just be like, it's fine. That's not the only company in the world. There's many companies. There's so many people I know who still got in, even though all of their projects were just like the time travel project and I don't know, whatever other capstones that we had, but they still got in because it was very clear that they were very skilled. And you could show it. And if you can show it very clearly and demonstrate it, then people will want to talk to you. That's usually what ends up happening. Oh, and change your LinkedIn profile status. It should say product designer or UX designer, or, you know, recruiters won't find you. So keep that in mind too.
All right, so next one is from V, and I'm going to kind of condense this down and make this a little bit more general, but you know, we are career switchers, and I guess, do we think that the industry, the UX industry as of today, is still open to career switchers? Or do you think that they're looking for like young graduates? I definitely have a take on this because I've actually been on the hiring end of this side, but I wanted to hear your take first.
I think that they would be open to career switchers, especially if you're coming in from like a related background. I mean, I totally understand. We have all been in a situation where we're just fresh out of somewhere, whether it's college or somewhere else or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, if you're still just a fresh young graduate coming out of college, you don't have experience yet. And I will also say that if you're a career switcher, comes down to it, you have so much more at stake. And I think just in terms of being a person and just knowing what's going on, like I would assume that if you have so much more at stake and you're doing this career switch thing, this means a lot more to you than somebody who is just coming out of college. And like, that is totally fine. You know, like you can come out of college and, you know, you'll still have opportunities. Like you're always going to have some kind of opportunity. But if you're a career switcher, like I know for a fact that you're probably going to work at least 5 times harder because you have been in like a job situation before. I don't have to teach you what it's like to be like with a manager. I don't have to teach you like, oh, like how to work. I don't have to teach you any of that kind of stuff, if that makes sense. Like, I think career switchers in general just show initiative because you are a career switcher. That says a lot more to me than like somebody who's coming from college.
Yep, and I think like just in general, I think the whole like, oh, career switcher means you don't know what you want. Like, I think that whole myth is being broken down as we speak. Like, there are so many people who are just like, you know what? I want to do something that I want to do. I want to do something that actually makes me happy. That doesn't make me want to, for lack of better words, puke. So,
yeah.
So yeah, okay, cool. So, and then I guess what I wanted to speak to was the whole fresh out of college thing. So I wanted to share really quickly that last year I did interview a candidate who went through a product design major at Stanford, which I was like, oh, product design, really? Like, is this new? Is this old? And I was very intrigued because I was like, oh, a 4-year college is doing this. And what I found in the curriculum, because this is how deep I go into my research on candidates when things intrigue me, I actually looked at the product design major. I looked at the course curriculum that Stanford had laid out, and everything was the most basic and intro level course, even as upper division courses. It was intro to product design, intro to this. So all of the classes, the way they were kind of laid out was still from a very theoretical standpoint. And during the interview, it showed that she actually couldn't speak to her own personal process. She couldn't speak to being able to accomplish a task. And I personally didn't care if she had actual formal experience at a job or with a client, but I did need to know if this was something she could actually do on a day-to-day. And her answers were all from a hypothetical standpoint, meaning that she basically said, like, I actually don't know how to do any of this, but this is how I would do it. And that to me was something that we weren't able to do, like, with the new hire. So so that's something that I would say, like, is a clear difference between like coming out of a college that has a 4-year degree program in product design or seeing like what comes out of like someone who spent 6 months in a boot camp. Like, it is a vast difference for sure.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, like a big part of the curriculum changes I'm making is making sure that a lot of these things have like some kind of real world application to it. Because I'm not about to make y'all go out into the world going like, I know how to do a task flow, but I don't know why I did it. I want you to know why you did it. So there's that.
Yep, totally. All right, we're going to do 2 more questions and then we are done. For those of you who are part of UXA, you know where to find us. If you have any follow-up questions or want like another Q&A with us, let me know. And if there are other questions from those who are not in our ecosystem, feel free to respond to the YouTube video that this is going to get uploaded to our YouTube. So you can always ask questions there. We can always come back with responses or just send us a message on Instagram or Twitter and we can answer there. All right, so last 2 questions. We're going to go to, let's see. Oh, these are some good ones. Okay, I think this one is good because you and I also just said that we're not good at visual design, but I think we can be objective about this. Is UX Academy at Designlab a good fit for someone who ultimately wants to become a UI designer? I see that you do learn UI design in the course, but I'm wondering if you get enough knowledge on UI to land your first job.
That's a good question. Like, when it comes down to UI, that's more toward the end. And if you feel pretty comfortable already with like talking to developers, you might not need to do all of the other UX stuff that comes beforehand. But again, check the job description. I would say that UX Academy really is, like right now at least, I'm trying to focus it a lot more on UX. Like you have to be pretty good at UI before you can come in. Like I'm also part of the admissions team, so I'm really strict. Just letting you all know.
We both are.
We're both really strict. So just keep that in mind. But yeah,
I mean, foundations. Okay, so I guess we can dive into we have something called UX Academy Foundations, which actually is kind of the answer to that. So we kind of prep everyone who wants to get into UXA. Usually, for the most part, most will start in UX Academy Foundations to get those UI kind of basics down. A little bit more than basics. You will come out with a final project. You'll apply to UXA, and if you get in, that's where you can like kind of build on those skills and kind of start layering on the UX stuff. But that's not to say that you won't be doing any UI stuff in UXA. Like at the end of the day, right? Like as much as we want to focus on UX or research, like at the end of the day, your portfolio is a visual thing. So UI design is going to be inevitable. So I personally would say that you will come out being able to land that specific job as a specialist if that's how if that's the direction you're going for, and that's where in the program you can take the opportunity to tell your mentor like, hey, I actually want to become a UI designer. Can we focus my capstone projects on this? So there's flexibility there to kind of focus on the areas that you want to focus on. Cool. All right, one more question. Oh my goodness. They're so... Ooh. Oh, someone wants to be a group crit facilitator. Van, you can message me on Slack. That makes me happy. How to start. Oh, okay. I think, well, hold on. Oh, we have so many good questions, everyone. Please absolutely respond. Go to our YouTube upload later on and ask all the questions. We will get back to you. All right. Where did this question go? I'm currently an account executive for a digital ad agency that builds WordPress websites. I started working on projects where I've been able to build wireframes and I loved it. Do you think moving from text sales to UX is a good move? And I think this is going to be one of those, take this with a grain of salt. This is based off of our interpretation. And ultimately it is your decision.
Yeah. I mean, I just know people who've switched from so many different types of things that it's like, whatever you were, but literally somebody was an elephant trainer before. I asked everybody what their past job was, and somebody was an elephant trainer. So I only asked that past job stuff so I can figure out how would you reframe all that stuff to show how it's good in design. I am sure I can think of something for elephant trainers that goes to design, because you still have to work with people and figure out how does this work, so there's that.
I think we actually have one more question and then we're going to be good. There's one that caught my eye a little bit. Oh, okay. This one's from Vanetta. If we are not strong in visual design or don't want to do UI, I think that last part is going to be inevitable, at least if you decide to do a bootcamp journey with anyone, it's inevitable. There's no way that you can do one without the other. But especially if you're leaning more towards UX research and strategy or UX writing, how do you suggest navigating that? I know I just kind of answered it, but what's your take on it?
Sorry, I was typing other thing. Could you ask a question again?
Yeah. If I guess like at the end of the day, basically, if you're not strong in visual design or you don't want to do it and you would rather focus on like research and strategy or UX writing, like what do you do in those scenarios? Like maybe, maybe when we're going to assume that Vanetta, you may or may not be in a boot camp, or maybe you're thinking about it, or maybe just thinking about the switch in general.
Yeah. I mean, UX writers, I've seen UX writing portfolios. They don't need to be like super visually clean, but their typography better be good. Like you still have to know something. I should still be able to read your stuff if you're doing UX writing. I'll look for some UX writing portfolios. I have a couple in store. But like if you're just doing like UX writing, UX strategy, or just UX in general, like you still need to at least show that you can work with some kind of design systems. Look up some material.io stuff, look at your Apple human interface guidelines, work with stuff there. You could always build something that way. Like you don't have to focus on just making every single tiny little thing. But there's lots of very simple, clean, which I hate using in anything, but it's just very like, here's my work. Please look at my work. If it's easy to look at, if it's easy to read, if you are telling a story, I think it's much better to go, like, that's what I would kind of go with, rather than like, hi, I am somebody who hates UI design, but still hire me. Does that make sense?
I think it just always goes back to like knowing how one part of the process relates to each other. Like you don't have to do it if you're able to find a job that allows you to not do it, but knowing how it relates to all the other processes and back. Just remember, the UX process is not a linear process. It's like it's more than an infinity symbol. It's like infinity times like 10 basically. So I know that's not accurate math, so please don't fault me for that. Oh my goodness. Okay, cool. So time's up with questions. I am loving the chat. I kind of expected this. I kind of expected everyone to come in and hype us up, which I am so eternally grateful for. But you all know where to find us, especially if you're in UXA. We're in Slack, but if you're not, hopefully maybe we'll see you in the future. But connect with us. We have our YouTube channel, we have our Instagram, we have our Twitter. All of those things, and community is, as everyone can see in the chat here, community is really what drives us. And Robbin and I live for this. And I know, like we said, we're introverts, but we do live for this.
Yeah, it's cool. Like basically the time that we can be Oprah X2,
And then I guess I wanted to share also, so on Medium, and I will try to remember to put this article up in Slack somewhere, but there's an article that I wrote after I graduated UXA about like, please hire me. I promise I have to do the job. Like, and I literally spend 5 minutes in the article just saying like, I come from support and here's what I can do. And here's how it relates to the UX process. So that's something that my mentor kind of suggested to me too. Like when in doubt, write a Medium article. And if you're so confident in doing so, like put that on your portfolio, for people to read, because those are kind of like, that's your vulnerable space. That's where you're able to share your thoughts as who you are. And I feel like that can really help kind of like sell you as a designer.
Yep.
Yeah.
I added my LinkedIn in the questions. I don't remember if I actually had it in the whatever this thing was called, the invite. But feel free to message me, y'all, if you have any questions. But if like 173 of you are going to be messaging me, just know I might be a bit slow replying.
All right, cool. So I think that is it. Full recording of this will be on our YouTube channel. Look for Designlab, or it's just youtube.com/Designlab Learning. That's our link. And then our Instagram is @Designlab. Twitter is @TryDesignLab. Yes, I know, like, it's a lot of things to remember, but I promise it's on there. It's also going to be on our IGTV. So this is going to be split into 2 parts, and it will be uploaded to our IGTV. So it helps. Please give us our likes and our subscribes and all that fun stuff. You know the gist. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. This was
Does the chat actually save? If the chat saves, I want it to.
Oh yeah, the chat does save. So this is awesome. Like this is the most hype we've ever gotten.
Hype. Thanks,
hype.
y'all.
All right, everyone. We will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.